come into a comfortable seated meditation posture. Feet flat on the ground. Sit a little forward in your chair. Back straight. Chin tucked in a little. But mostly just find what is comfortable for you and what you can maintain for the duration of this meditation, which will be a few minutes. And feel free to adjust your posture throughout the meditation in order to find the most comfortable position. Turn your awareness to your breathing. And just observe how your breath flows through your body. And just be aware of it. And as you focus more on the breath, allow it to soften and to deepen. Until you're breathing deep down into your belly. Breathe deeply into the belly, and on the exhalation, release completely. And do that several times until you're feeling more relaxed and more centered and more focused. Now we will switch our breathing to an energetic center in the body, the solar plexus, right below the breastbone. And breathe into the solar plexus on the count of 4. And out on the count of 4. Breathing into the solar plexus. And out from the solar plexus. In, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, and in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, and continue that at your own pace. Now imagine the room filling with a clear yellow mist, the color that is the background of the strength card. See the mist fill the room, the color yellow everywhere all around us. And feel the mist fill the room until it is close in all around your body. Little tendrils of mist just nestling up against you. Breathe the yellow mist in at the solar plexus to the count of 4. And feel it entering your body. Then release it from the body on the count of 4, seeing it re-enter the room. Bring it into the body via the solar plexus to the count of 4. And release it back into the room via the solar plexus to the count of 4. As you bring it into your body, feel it fill the entire body. From your toes to your fingertips to your head, every part of your body filled with happy yellow mist, sunshiny yellow mist. And then on the out breath, let all of it release back out into the room. Continue this at your own pace, following the count of 4. Now we'll add a visualization of the strength card and just seeing it before us and connecting to it via the color yellow. If you would like to add the tone E at this time, you can. Breathing the strength card into you on the count of 4 and breathing it back out on the count of 4. Now visualizing the strength card in front of you. And begin to see it dissipate till only the yellow mist remains. And breathing the yellow mist in and the yellow mist out. And then see the yellow mist dissipate. Until you're just breathing the regular air of the room. And then discontinue from breathing from the solar plexus. And just return to your normal breathing without the count. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the chair under you. And return into your body. And bring the meditation to a close.
Does anybody feel like they retained the E note into the meditation?
I was able to.
Even though we didn't
chanting?
do any chanting.
I think once you've heard the note, and you remember the tone, it's easier to remember in your meditations.
Yeah, it kind of stuck with me. And I was able to recall it a number of times during the meditation.
Thank you, Joy.
Mm-hmm.
So, north above. One thing that has occurred to me is how all the above cards on the four sides of the above face are very similar in their symbolism.
So we have temperance on the west.
We have temperance, strength
on the north.
the star,
The
and
star
the
on
chariot.
the south.
No, the lovers.
And
The lovers,
they're
even
all,
better.
Are they,
I guess probably one thing, while you're talking about the corners that are adjacent to the upper, or the above face, then all of those also have a relationship to the magician, which is the above face. So each one of them can be read in context of this is the kind of magus type of effort that's involved in all of them, of some sort.
Well, yeah, and as far as a higher being sort of influencing the lower world. Like here, it's the virgin controlling the lion. And she has the lemniscate above her head, like the magician. Same color as the magician. In the star, the energy of the star is flowing down through the woman and being poured out through her two hands, like in the strength card, the energy of her grace or her gentleness is opening the mouth of the lion. In the Lover's card, the angel is almost like giving a blessing to the or the higher self being is giving a blessing to the man and the woman in the garden. And what's the fourth one? Or have I covered
Temperance.
Temperance. Same deal as the star card, basically. There's a higher energy that is being transmitted down through the two hands of the being to fall on the lion and the eagle below. So, while that's not strength specific, I thought that it was kind of cool that the cards are that harmonious at that level.
All of them seem to have like, a bit of kind of an intermediary quality about them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas maybe the practitioner also plays an intermediary role while they're exploring these paths, respectively. And all of them, are high-level, internal work, really. Just integrating the inner and the outer, the upper and the lower, the left and the right, dark and the light, etc.
Well, and it's interesting because the Lovers has the sun above the angel, and the Temperance card has the rainbow, and there's also like a halo on the angel, but there's angels, I think, get pronouns they, them, right? Because they're
genderless.
Because they're genderless, and so there's a rainbow over them. And the star card, of course, has the star. It's not an angel like the other two, but the star card has the star above. And the strength card has the lemniscate, which is interesting because that's an abstract symbol, whereas the sun and the star and the rainbow are all, they certainly have plenty of esoteric meanings to them, but they're all a little bit more literal symbols, and the lemniscate is a little bit more abstract, and yet in many ways I want to say there's almost a more mundane quality to the strength card.
Perhaps because there's a lot of solar symbols in the other cards, and this is a card relating to Leo, ruled by the sun.
Yeah.
So in one sense, you could look at this being as the upper north, and if considering the kind of work being done on the north, this is more like a subordinate role to some of the energies going on in the other cards.
Well, and it makes it really clear because in the north, the sun is that's the place of the greatest darkness. So the sun is not in the north. And so the sun is within in the north. It is not expressed externally. And so in the Leo card, there is no sun or star or rainbow or external light source because it is within at that point. What do you think, Penny?
Sorry, I'm still focusing on the two hands thing and stuff with that.
Now, is that an app, or do you have a folder of images on your phone?
Just images.
And that's what you were touching on,
awesome.
like the two hands, in all of those cards. There's action being performed by both hands equally.
Yeah, I was thinking about action being performed in those as opposed to just holding something. That there's more of like an active, like where like the high priestess, there's two hands, but she's just holding.
Sure, and a lot of them. The emperor too is just holding the orb and the scepter and so on. But
particularly with strength, temperance, and the star,
they're
specific.
all,
they're actually using both hands to. There's like a synthesis or an action.
Depending on the depiction of the card, too, then there's some debate, or maybe it is kind of semi-intentional in some versions of the strength card. The woman appears to be closing the jaws of the lion.
Mm-hmm.
In others, she appears to be opening the jaws.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that also, that the balance, I think, that strength has, at least in terms of the tree of life, the balance between chesed, the force of love, versus gevura, the force of will, both being at play there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point.
And there is at that like that midpoint where you're really kind of uncertain exactly where she's going with it, but she could go either direction. It's just kind of poised there, ready to do either.
Yeah. Does the black area of the lion's mouth look like a pay?
Kind of.
Well, the tongue is sticking out, yes.
The tongue, yeah. Yeah, kind of. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is relating
It's
to
his mouth.
Tower, the north face,
Right.
Mars.
Yeah.
Totally.
Interesting.
Somewhere in our...
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just like, so wait a second. So we're on the north face, which is the tower, which is pay, which means mouth, which is possibly referenced in this open mouth of this lion. And what is like the primary... So I'm postulating, I'm like, okay, so what is the symbolism of this regarding that whole thing? This control over the destructive force of the tower, this use of when to unleash it and when to redirect it or control it in some
Perhaps,
manner.
or in a way that, if a tower type of action is necessary, then to perhaps to mitigate it enough so that it still does, it accomplishes what it's supposed to do, but doing it in a way that doesn't leave you completely devastated, perhaps.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about this before I came over, and I just happened, actually, when I was waiting for Penny to come by, I was sitting in the lobby, and I was facing north. So I said, okay, let me just meditate on the north face a little bit. And it happened to be a very tall apartment building right opposite me.
Yeah.
Okay, there's my tower. Now I'm visualizing that tower coming down, but because of the modern context of everything, I visualized this more as like a very controlled, implosion rather than it just tipping over and knocking everything over within easy reach.
Yeah.
But it was, it still had to come down, but it did so in a very well-engineered manner.
Right.
Which was kind of, for me, like that object of strength. Is to employ the force, but to do so in a way that is very directed, very focused, and that only is, effective on the object that you're working on rather than anything in its surrounding influence.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, and it's very magician, too. As far as focus and funneling the energy down into one target or aim that's kind of what I'm picking up from what you're saying.
That is, it's concentrated. It's like here, rather than it's allowed to be like expanded out. Also, maybe in a kind of a reflection of, as the chesed and gevura is a reflection of the processes of chokmah and bina. As chokmah is the force that is being released, bina is the form that contains that force and keeps it in the framework that it was intended for.
I think we were talking about some depictions seen as opening or some as closing relates kind of to that lemniscate too, of that infinity and sort of that fulcrum point in the middle. That I was reading about how like the number 8 is the only number besides 0 that can be written without raising the pen. Like if you were,
okay,
like
cool.
if you were to do it like traditionally, where you would do like the points and stuff, you know. And so there's like that connection between 8 and 0. But to me, when he was talking about like the mouth opening or the mouth closing,
Sure.
is kind of that, you know, constant
involution, evolution.
Yeah. And with the red lion representing sulfur and mercury and kind of the tension between those two forces as well, maybe. In terms of like enacting will or focus there.
Did anybody... I know we talked about it last time. What was this? Like, and I know the red is partly the reference to sulfur, but what's the full alchemical symbolism of the red lion? Does anybody remember?
Maybe it was the natural force being manipulated or controlled. Whereas the green lion is just untempered natural force.
So the green lion is the animal nature before ripening or purification, and the red lion is nature brought under control of the higher aspects of man's spiritual being.
Well, and that's this.
So John got it right.
Yeah.
I like John says it, and I give him a weird look, and then Penny says it. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
Oh, Penny didn't say it. B.O.T.A said it. Yeah.
B.O.T.A said it.
This is why I get along with Librans so well.
I remember somewhere in Paul Foster Case's materials where this lion is connected with what he calls the serpent force.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Shakti, because of Tet, which is a
Yeah.
picture of a snake. The lion's tail, I'm seeing it over here in the Crowley card too.
Oh, for sure.
And she's riding the beast, which it's sexual energy. And taming that, controlling that within ourselves. And that force is the great magical agent for manifesting things magically. And so she is enacting the magician on this lion. And somewhere else, the lion, maybe in the Hulse materials, not sure, can't remember, is compared to the devil. And Ayin, which is the eye that is pictured in the case card, and appears again on the temperance card, the lion there, and something about the darkness of the western side.
I think what he mentioned, from what I remember, this was the act of basically calling out the devil by name, and so that he no longer has any control over you at that point. So it's like saying, okay, I recognize the forces on the western side that were holding me back. Here, I'm going to say, you can no longer have that influence over me. I'm off to discover bigger and better things.
Okay, I have a whole bunch of questions. So we talked about the Kundalini force and the snake-like, serpent-like Tet influence of the tail. And you mentioned that the lion was sulfur and mercury. And sulfur I know from the red, but my Tarot of the Old Path and maybe another deck, but I can't remember what other one I'm thinking of. The lion's tail wraps around a caduceus, and so that would be the mercury. So what was the mercury influence in there? Is it the sulfur plus mercury acting together? Is that what it is?
The mercury is the intellect or imagination aspect that comes in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I know one of the titles for the card is creative imagination, and that's how I always understood for the mercury aspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the lemniscate and the yellow.
Right.
So it's sulfur. the activating agent, and Mercury is the agent of fluidity.
Right.
Well, and there's so much color scheme stuff going on here that is in harmony with the Magician card in the B.O.T.A deck. With the yellow and the roses in the green and the white robe and the red, and it's all the same colors. It's just transformed from masculine to feminine. And also, if you line this up in the tarot tableau that he talks about with 7, 7, and 7, this is right below the Magician card. He talks about, he being Paul Foster Case, talks about this is 7 stages of unfoldment, and each stage is happening on 3 different realms. And so you've got the Magician, Strength, and the Devil. And the Devil is the darkness, the bondage that you start out with. And the Magician is trying to effect change in that area at the beginning of the process.
It's also interesting that you mentioned that Holst refers to the lion as a symbol of the devil, and the devil happens to be directly underneath in that tableau as well.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like Magician up here. Here's the Magician acting on the devil, and the devil down here. Mm-hmm. And the devil is a parody of that Lover's card, which is also up there at the top of the cube. As a matter of fact, it's on the exact opposite side of the cube, because it's west below and east above for the lovers. So they're diagonally opposed to each other.
The lovers and the devil, okay.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
They're diagonally opposed to each other.
Crosswise.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Right.
Okay, so the other question I have is that when we moved from the western face onto the northern face, we went via I'm looking at John's Toth deck, and so all I can think of is adjustment, or Libra.
Justice.
Justice, thank you. Like we moved via Libra to Virgo.
Judge Judy.
And so we spent a lot of time talking about those two, and we talked about the Hermit quite a bit. And so I am now associating the northern face in my mind with the Hermit, go your own way. You have to kind of follow your own light and do your own thing. And when you get to the southern side, and that's governed more by the Hierophant, and that's going to be you follow the mystery school, you follow the teacher. But then I'm like, wait a second, the Hermit doesn't rule this side. He's not isn't it the central card that's kind of like the theme for the side? And so we saved the Tower for last, but we kind of have to, at some point we have to address it because it's our theme, isn't it? Or am I misunderstanding
you go
how
there
that
last.
works?
Is it the theme, or is it more like the gate?
It's the gate to the
Like these guys, I think,
southern
is like the
face.
prep work, and then that's like the final.
It is in the Holst book too, the way he describes traversing all of these paths on the side is that you are exploring aspects of the tower and what that tower experience is, but you're doing it from the perimeters rather than going full force into it right away. Because if you did, you'd be
blasted.
You would be completely annihilated by that energy.
Okay, because I guess I keep wanting a different form of symmetry, but this makes sense. So when you're born out through the central wheel on the west face, and then you go down to the devil, and then death and temperance and justice, and then you come onto the north face, you're not... See, I was thinking of being born through the wheel, so we started with the wheel, but you circle the north face from... justice, coming via justice, and then going down to the Hermit, then the Emperor, then strength, and then in, instead of coming out at the wheel, we're coming in this side at the tower to come out at what card on
the sun.
The sun.
The sun. And then you go out again, and then you go over to the east face, and then you go in again to the doorway.
And
which
it's
is
like
Dalit.
the hokey pokey. It's like tarot hokey pokey.
Yeah. And so it's symmetrical like that and opposite.
Okay.
You know, you start in the center of one face, go around to the outsides, and then you go over to the next face, go around the outsides, go to the center, go through the center of the cube again, go over to the other side, emerge from the center of the south face, and then go to the outsides, and then pass to the eastern face, go around the outsides, go back to the center, which is Dalit, the door, back to the center of the cube.
And where do you go from there?
Well, then you have the choice.
You go to a magician?
You have the choice
of coming back.
Coming back into manifestation, like a bodhisattva.
Via the wheel?
Via the wheel.
Or do you go to a different phase at that point?
Or you can go up to the magician.
What happens then?
We'll just have to wait.
Then you're like in
Sounds sexy. Then you...
You just reminded me, I actually did see a bumper sticker that said, "What if the hokey pokey was what it's all about?" I think we just determined that it actually is.
That's awesome. Oh, that's a good one.
That's very good. Okay, I'm super excited now. Should we... I had more questions, but I'm also like, can we read Hulse on strength?
Yes. However, I need to borrow somebody's copy when it's my turn to read because
I got it
it's in my phone. So.
Oh, okay, that's fine. You can borrow my copy.
That's not
this
Hulse.
is not.
That is the Hulse that isn't Hulse.
I don't have Hulse.
So you
are correct.
Right,
I don't have Hulse.
Here, it's ready. You can just pass it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Or if you want to read
so I'll just read until I stop. Then shall I?
You shall.
Strength, north above. The final edge of the north is finally approached by the seeker. At the top of the northern face is strength, emitting a brilliant yellow light. In this direction of north above, the seeker explores alone, learning as many techniques and practices as possible to bring about a deeper understanding of the higher self. This is the first time that some form of meditation, contemplation, or visualization is attempted. Some sort of spiritual exercise or technique, such as breath counting, chanting, creative visualization, devotion, meditation, ritual, or the secret lore of nature concealed in the various herbs, flowers, plants, stones, minerals, and crystals of the earth may also be practiced.
Hey, we did a bunch of that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
All with the aim of getting in contact with your own inner world. Do I swipe?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Formal spiritual disciplines such as yoga or Tai Chi may also be studied by the student for the first time. The red lion in strength represents the devil, who rules the west from beneath the surface of awareness. He is confronted by the woman draped in white and is also passively subdued for the first time. By practicing spiritual exercises, the student begins to work consciously on revealing the true nature of the inner self and attempts once and for all to overcome the enticing sleep of the devil. The demon is not only confronted and named, it is also embraced with the force of love rather than fear or hate. In the
love being Hesed and fear being Pachad, which is Gevurah.
In the remorseful and compassionate work of the North, the eyes of the seeker are turned inward rather than outward upon the world. This is the most royal quest that anyone can pursue in this lifetime or the next. It is this quest that will lead the seeker around the entire cube, only to return to the center.
The work, exercises, and techniques discovered in the North are only the beginning of the work that is required for spiritual development. This work is done alone, without any formal supervision in the north, often incompletely or incorrectly. You will soon discover, however, that real instruction and guidance await in the walled inner circle of the southern face of the cube. This is the sun card with the wall around it. So the walled inner circle of the southern face of the cube. Where the north brought you firmly along on the path toward spiritual realization, the south... where the north brought you firmly along the path toward spiritual realization, the south will bring you to an inner circle of teachers that will lead you directly to the knowledge that until now you have sought in the north alone and in complete darkness. Hal read more than his share, so we're done.
This was a shorter one, I think, too.
Yeah, no, it was. So one of the things that all of this is making me think is that we talked about strength being Leo and ruled by the sun, and we kind of postulated this theory that the sun is an internal sun because we're on the north side. And so that internal sun is getting externalized or manifested outward on the southern face, right? And so, and almost, I was associating the southern face with the Hierophant as the teacher, but now I'm like, well, there's a teacher it talks about a circle of teachers. So what are the cards? Aquarius above, and Hierophant is southeast. And then below is...
the moon.
Oh, right.
Blue's the moon, and then death is
southwest. Right. Okay. So, is that the circle of teachers, those four? The sun and the Hierophant and the moon and death? And the other thing that I'm thinking is almost this idea that if the sun is internal in the strength card and then manifested outward on the southern face at the center there and becomes this walled circle of teachers, I almost feel like the teacher is actually something within that is somehow, it's almost like, oh, no more search for teachers. It's actually something that you find within, but you externalize. And that kind of goes back to the temperance HGA thing.
The Paul Foster Case talks about the Hierophant as being our intuition, when our the inner teacher, when our rationality, which is the Emperor, the previous card, gives out, trying to set things up and control things and build things the way he wants to do it, which is the Tower of Destruction, the crown getting blown off the tower, and the tower getting kablooey. Then it gets reassembled on the southern face as the stones in the wall, which Paul Foster Case compares to library books.
Oh my God.
And this inner circle, inner teacher, we become silent and we open ourselves to just listening, inner listening. And then the intuition can speak internally.
I'm sorry, with which card?
This is the sun.
Because we're sitting in the library?
Right, but then the intuition is the Hierophant, the voice of the inner teacher. And Taurus ruling, and Vav ruling the throat, and the voice of the inner teacher. And
also that Vav is also hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Vav is hearing. Yeah. And they relate it in this book, I think. How do I remember this shit? In this book, they relate it to the word Simeon, Simon, who was the apostle who listened.
Oh, wow.
And the name Simon means hearing. Simeon. And there's something about the gematria about that too. So we're listening to the voice of the inner teacher, and when we are ready, the teacher appears internally.
Internally, that's the thing.
And
but not internally. It expresses outward from the internal. So there is an outward manifestation of it.
You're getting the expressing outward from the fact that we emerge in the center of the face?
Into the sun is hidden in the north and it's visible in the south. That's where I get it.
That's cool.
So it's not just like sitting quietly and listening to your intuition and just like following that. It is like expressing. It's like, to me, one of the differences, and this is like this ongoing kind of personal discussion or personal inner monologue I have around, what exactly the HGA is. But intuition is I just sit quietly and boom, I just have a sense. Just like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to follow this. I'm going to go that way or this way or whatever. HGA work, or a lot of like guide work, is different because it is externalized. There is a entity, a being, something that you communicate with in somehow. It doesn't have to be a clairvoyant or a clairaudient experience. It can still have other expressions, but it is nevertheless considered to be something outside of yourself, not you. Maybe a part of you, maybe we can argue the details. That's fine, but that's that's kind of where I'm trying to arrive at in terms of understanding what Case thinks about this, and maybe what Hulse thinks about it if he addresses it, because he does have some interesting stuff in the HGA earlier on. But I don't know, that's just, I guess that's my question is, all of a sudden I'm seeing this as, yes, according to this material, the teacher does need to be manifested outward because the sun is external and visible in the southern face, as opposed to the northern face where it's internal and invisible. Does anybody else care about this?
No, it's interesting, and all I can do is wonder, because I sure don't know. But maybe it'll say something, or we'll get some insight or intuition on it when we get over there and study it.
Yeah,
because we still
I have a feeling, because that's probably a subject that probably will work its way out as we go to that side and explore the dynamics behind.
So it's like a Joss Whedon thing where it gets planted early on and doesn't really come out until season 2 or something.
Story arc?
Story arc.
It's like just a little breadcrumb on the trail.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting notion. It's like, that the breadcrumb is discovered here on this path of Tet, on the above, on your preparation to traverse to the south.
Tomberg, in the Meditations in the Tarot, which granted is sort of a different system than the builders of the atom, but he talks about the star, the moon, and the sun in sequence, because he's going through the cards in sequence, and he says that they are the 3 forms of light. The first one, the star, is revealed light.
Yeah.
The moon is reflected light, and the sun is creative light. And there they are all on, straight up and down on the southern face. You got the star above, the sun in the center, and the moon beneath.
Can you explain what revealed light would be?
Well, I've got to reread that part of Tomberg as far as what he says about it.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it seems like Each one depicts light coming from above, like we talked about when we started talking about the strength card. It's a force that comes from above. He says that it's revealed light is something that brings you in silence to an attitude of prayer and receptivity. I think that's something that he says. Like just wanting to receive it, sort of like she receives the light and funnels it through her.
Could you liken those three lights to what we've talked about with like super consciousness, self-consciousness, and subconsciousness as well?
I hadn't done that, but that's interesting.
There is, I think, in reading ahead on some of the Hulse material too, in the star card, it does talk about the stars representing the 7 chakras. Plus, I think that also is the sequence of the stepping through the faces of the cube in terms of planetary attribution. Mm-hmm. But he puts them in each one of them in a different order, which to me, I didn't quite make sense of that part, but
So say that again. Sorry.
Is that the 7 stars that are depicted in the star card are the chakras and also the faces plus the center of the cube.
Got it.
This is also one thing, just, it kind of reminds me, since we're kind of, jumping ahead to the southern face and some of the cards that are associated with that I've been reviewing some of the Townley material. And one of the ways that he differs from the Hulse model is that he points out that the currents along the top of the cube are going in a counterclockwise direction in terms of flow.
Yeah, you had the GIF that you were showing us.
And that, what he postulates is that this is kind of where we begin. And this is the place, where we get maybe caught up in that circular current. And that we would, if we do not act or decide to explore some of the more inner work, which is on the face below, in the subconscious, where we're at the above in the conscious realm, that we just keep going around in this circle until we decide to travel downwards and start doing that work in earnest. So in that sequence, we have strength on the one end, and let me get that book out because I don't remember visually. That proceeds to the temperance card on west above, to the star south above, to the lovers on east above, around in that sequence. So while we could be continually getting these the experiences of the path of Tet throughout our lives, we also get experiences of the star and temperance and lovers.
Sort of like a vortex.
Yeah, it's like it's like being it's like the trash vortex in the Pacific in a way, because it's all this is just the ordinary stuff that's just kind of floating around and really just kind of without real meaning or purpose, because it's just processing it in our conscious mind. It's like, okay, now we can easily convince ourselves this is just the way things are indefinitely and there's nothing beyond. But if we decide to actually act upon that and say we want to clean the trash vortex up, remove some of that stuff in, then we have to go into the ocean. We have to dive down.
Now, when you're diving down from this vortex that is above the 4 edges that are above, are you talking about diving down into the world and out through the wheel, or are you talking about diving down all the way to the high priestess on the bottom face?
It's diving all the way to the high priestess via the paths that are flowing downward, namely the 4 outer edges. Yeah, only the path of the emperor and the path of justice are the ones that flow downward to the high priestess. On the opposite side, they flow upwards.
They flow upward.
Which way does the Fool go?
The Fool? Well, the way he describes it is, again, with the reviewing, so now it's pretty fresh in my mind. The cube itself is created from a central point. From that central point is basically Cater, the first swirlings, or whirlings. I keep saying swirlings for some reason, then I think swirlies. And I was like, no.
Well, vortex.
We don't want to go down that way. But that's where the whole thing kicks off. And then the idea of Hokmah is expansion. That's where that central point begins to grow. And within that, because Hokmah is related to the powers of the Zodiac, it carries with it the idea of these edges, 12 edges on the outside of the cube. They don't manifest yet, but it carries that concept with it of these are demarcations of volume.
All right.
And then the actual cube is formulated by the power of Bina, which seals the directions.
Right,
And that's through the permutations of the name Jah in Hokmah. So together, first, it took a while for me to really grasp a hold of that, but it's like, first come the corners, then come the sides.
So Townley doesn't really have this model where you, of initiations, where you manifest first on the west side.
Well, not in a very orderly sense.
Yeah, not in the same way that...
he says there is an initiatory or an evolutionary path to follow, but you're basically at the mercy of the currents of the cube. You can, if you wanted to go to a specific path from a path that you're working on, you might have to travel 2 or 3 different paths just to get there.
Meaning, like, you can't swim upstream.
Right.
Yeah.
Or at least, you'd have a really tough time doing it.
As opposed to the easy time you have going with the stream.
Well, and I'm trying to think, way back in the very beginning when we first started talking about this, and we talked about, I believe, the world and the Fool and the Hanged Man. Wasn't there the sense of the, length and width and depth or some such thing? What was that? Do you remember when we talked about that? Was that you? And I might have it wrong, so that's why you were telling me about it, Penny.
Well, go ahead. There was something I wanted to... I hadn't quite finished the thought completely. Oh, sorry. Because this was addressing Hal's question about the direction of the Fool. And just building off the fact that these are actually... The paths themselves are emanating from outwards from the center. And then going back and reading the actual text from the Sefer Yetzirah. And saying, okay, first, the above direction is sealed. Then the below is sealed. So it emanates outwards from the center, so it actually is going both directions. It's flowing above and below on the Fool. Which kind of makes total sense. It made sense to me because these actually on the opposite sides of each of these axes are the double letters, carrying with them this idea of duality and opposition, which is kind of inherent in that splitting of direction of the mother letters.
Can I bring up a couple things?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it's a little off.
No, that's okay.
So I like my numbers
and
correspondences. So thinking about how each number, you can also look at every number before it added up. Like each number has the power of all the numbers.
Yeah.
So for 8, the total is 36. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Yeah. So I was looking at, 36 also is the mystic number of the 8th path of Hod.
Oh, okay.
So there's that correlation. But also I was thinking, 36 is the number of Krypton, one of the elements. But yet 9 for Teth is the elemental number for fluorine. And I was reading about how fluorine is the element that acts upon or affects every other element. It's the only element that does that. And krypton is an element that only interacts with fluorine.
I didn't know there was really a krypton.
Yeah. So I was thinking that kind of brings back again to what we were talking about with the mouth being open or the mouth being closed. and that kind of like within this, and what you were talking about, like the teacher within or the light within versus, and I was thinking like just that, even thinking about the elements or the application of that you have within it, representative of the one element that acts upon everything, and the one element that is only acted upon the element that acts upon everything. So you kind of have, does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. It's too complicated. Say it again.
So I think it's hinting for me at the idea of the lemniscate, or the mouth being closed or the mouth being open, is that you have within this card, gematrially or elementally, however you want to look at it, the idea of a force that can act upon everything.
The fluorine, which is the 9 of
Right.
Tet.
But you also have an element that acts upon nothing and only can be acted upon by fluorine.
And that's what Krypton can't act on anything, and the only
it's
thing that
only
can
acted
affect
upon
it
by
is fluorine.
Fluorine.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So I feel like and it has no odor or smell. So fluorine doesn't react with anything, Krypton doesn't react with anything except fluorine. So not even like one other element somewhere. Only the thing that acts upon all. So there's this idea of kind of like within, without, or all or nothing, or like a negative existence versus the thing that's... It's almost like, for me, I go back to that creative imagination title too, is like bringing something from nothing with the thing that encompasses everything. This is hard for me to explain because it's more something I feel rather than can verbalize. But I liked that interaction there with those numbers and the elements.
Well, how do you happen to know how fluorine acts on Krypton? What happens to Krypton when fluorine interacts with it?
Let's look it up.
I kind of feel like Krypton is our tower. And fluorine is the thing that is the lightning bolt. The tower is solid until the fluorine lightning bolt comes along. I mean, even though those two are associated clearly with the strength card, because the Krypton is deriving from the 8 and the fluorine from the Tet, which is the 9, but I'm following I'm extending your metaphor.
I would have to ask Charlie that. I can't find like a specific... I'd probably literally have to read like some major chemistry to find the exact reaction.
I'm just wondering if
I will say
breaks
that
down
krypton, the word comes from kryptos, meaning hidden. So it's called the hidden one too, which is pretty cool.
Isn't it radioactive as well?
I don't remember reading that, but that doesn't mean it's not.
I'm still getting over that Superman's thing is like a real...
Oh, here's something cool about krypton. It is present in the sun and in the atmosphere of Mars.
Huh.
And part of the sulfur we're talking about is the Mars force in here, too. The Mars force is one of the things that she is
controlling.
Yes.
Is controlling. Well, and Mars is the tower, and the sun is the ruler of Leo, the strength card, and Mars as the...
Right.
That's pretty cool.
So all of that works pretty well, actually, with this.
Wow.
And also, the Mars, at least the Mars and the solar affiliations, also sync up with the Emperor as Aries.
Right, both the ruler and the exalted planets. Yeah, for sure. Oh man, this is cool.
So it's almost like I'm kind of seeing just that interrelation here with these two cards, the Emperor and Strength, as they relate to the Tower, as being kind of one constituting an overall second stage of this process, whereas these two cards are representing another different aspect. Which is maybe a bit on the polarized side, because there's we have here, we have Aries on this side, we have Libra on the other side,
Right.
opposite signs.
Yeah.
And there's that.
Oh, yeah.
There is that pattern that recurs alongside all over the cube. Maybe not on every face consistently, but there are. You'll notice that there will be opposite sides on opposite, edges of each face. In some cases.
That's really interesting. Well, and so the north side is this dark half of the year from Libra until Aries, which makes sense.
I did try yesterday. I was trying because I had seen I was looking at all the astrological things on the edges and as they related to the planets and the directions. And so, okay, well, is there a pattern going on here astrologically if you mapped all of those signs out in the way that they fall? I can say, there are some cases where it works. In particular, I think, with the Eastern and the Western, I think there is... Let's see, this Capricorn. There is a sequence that covers, on the Western face, basically the third quadrant from Libra to Capricorn. And on the Eastern face, it's primarily the first quadrant of sequence. And it doesn't hold on the rest of the cubes. And then Townley kind of acknowledges this, that there is a bit of a discontinuity in some places. Like, for example, below, as opposed to the above it goes all... The currents, for one thing, go in one direction, but with the below face, it goes in one direction, and then there's one that just kind of goes the opposite, which happens to be on the north face, actually, I think. That the hermit is the one that's the odd one out, who's going against the flow of things.
Oh, interesting.
Which, and kind of highlights the challenging aspect of working on the north face. Because it has that aspect of discontinuity about it.
Yeah. Do we have some tarot fundamentals to look at today?
We do. We always have that. In my evidence bag.
I love it. John's got quite the library built up in his bag, he was telling me.
Just keep the severed fingers inside the bag.
So here's 19.
Okay.
Here's 20.
Did you mark any particular
I
paragraphs for us?
might have. Oh, this was one I thought was interesting. The Empress and the High Priestess sit. This woman, like the one in Key 6, stands. The High Priestess is subconsciousness conceived as being the recorder and preserver of the various impressions originating at self-conscious and superconscious levels. The Empress typifies the germination of mental images through subconscious response to conscious and superconscious stimuli. The woman in Key 6 shows a more active response of subconsciousness to superconsciousness, potencies, and guidance. Now in Key 8, the woman is shown controlling all the forces of nature below the human level. I liked that. Well, we were talking earlier about, with the star and the lovers and some of the corollaries with that, too.
So, okay, 2, 3, 6, 8. I think you're gonna have to. You're gonna have to start again.
It feels like like the generations of the active or passive roles of consciousness or subconsciousness, whereas the Empress and the High Priestess are seated, and then in the Lovers that force stands up.
Okay,
but it's still as an active passive. Whereas this is more like an active.
Okay, yeah.
Version of that thing that starts with the, or is representative of.
Okay.
Which also, tying in with a side that is ruled by Mars. Mars basically is, one of action. Mm-hmm. So that, as a theme, that could work as a theme for all of these surrounding cards, that they all involve some kind of force of action.
Interesting.
Even justice. It's emphasizing the act, of maybe just being judgmental in a way, or decisive and discerning as an active process rather than a reactionary one.
Well, yeah, because she goes from Gevora to Tiferet, and the Gevora is first of all, again, it's a Mars force, reiterated. But yeah, it is that there has to be action taken in order to bring about harmony. That this is not a go with the flow, everything's good, it's all good, Hesed thing. This is Gevora Tiferet. So yeah, I see the action in Libra for sure. Or in Justice, I keep saying that.
There's just a couple of shorties that I guess kind of sum up what we were trying to talk about with the alchemical. Thus in North above are joined the powers symbolized by keys 1 and 16. Key 1 represents the self-conscious level of mental activity. Key 16 represents the fiery energies which in Key 1 are symbolized by the red outer mantle of the magician. Alchemy affords another clue in the books of its adepts. The red lion is said to represent sulfur combined with mercury. Sulfur is the Mars force north, and mercury is related to the direction above. Key 8 then shows what occurs when cosmic fire is controlled by self-conscious acts of attention. Furthermore, since Key 8 is north above, we may understand that what is pictured in this key is a direct consequence of intentional conscious practice.
A direct consequence of intentional active practice?
Conscious practice.
Conscious practice.
Yeah.
Okay, and now finally the Mercury-Mars thing came.
Yeah,
Sulfur-Mercury-Mars-Mercury combo came together.
Yeah. Because
I supersized it.
It connects the north with the above. There's the Mars and there's the Mercury.
Yeah. Via, strength on the north above. Yeah, that's awesome. Good.
So a lot of the other stuff he does talk about with this card too, I made a few notes about it that we haven't touched on really, is with this card there's a whole segment on learning that everything is spirit and different vibrations of that, and there's a lot with karma on this card as well that I feel like on the surface maybe one wouldn't necessarily totally associate with that, but I think some of it, I know that Lemniscate is just has so much more going on, I think, here than I would just surfacely.
I don't know, when you said that, like the blip that my mind went off on a tangent instead of listening to you, the blip was to the magician, and just as I thought of the magician, I saw the word one thing, and it's like the magician and one, and the lemniscate and strength, and so now I'm all excited. I want to read this. Can I read this out loud? And so this is Tarot Fundamentals, Lesson 19, the Serpent Power. The Hebrew letter Tet means snake. If you examine the form of the character, you will see that it is a conventionalized picture of a coiled serpent. The serpent is one of the most frequently used and one of the most important occult symbols. The wise ones employ it when they wish to compress their knowledge of the great magical agent into a single emblem. The great magical agent is an actual force employed every day by everyone. It is cosmic electricity, the universal life principle, the conscious energy, which takes form. And so conscious already came up as this, okay, the conscious energy which takes form as all existing things and builds them all from within. In human personality, it is specially manifested as a subtle kind of nerve force, to which our Oriental brethren give the name Kundalini, the coiled one. Coiled in our Tet is coiled. learning
so much in the Tom
in
Burke
the-
book about the electricity and the energy and electromagnetism and the coiling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he doesn't
Like
even
coils, like in generators and things,
and snakes.
and snakes,
Yes,
and Ouroboros.
yes, and the
They
serpent,
coil around. They kind of don't they? Do they coil around eggs? That's
That's
the Orphic symbolism, but I mean, do actual snakes coil around actual eggs?
They do. I think they coil around heat bricks. I've seen that happen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
and he talks
Okay.
about the serpent and the dove, which is symbolized a lot in that deck.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, and primarily in the tower, he has the serpent and the dove.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I
and
see it.
in the Hierophant card too.
Yes.
There's
I was going to say, I
serpent
thought
and
I'd seen
dove.
it recently. I saw it on the
Yeah.
Hierophant card.
Yeah.
Okay. So this gets better, so keep listening. Learning to control strength, the magical agent, is part of the daily work of every student of the ageless wisdom. One step toward control is to establish a clear intellectual perception of the truth that all the various forms of physical existence are merely transformations of this one energy. That's E equal MC squared, I think. The world is full of a number of things, but all are disguises for the one thing. The essential nature of the one thing is spirit. The old Hebrew name for the mode of consciousness represented by the letter Tet is the intelligence of the secret of works. Works, the word works shows up on several of the
This is Tet.
of the minor arcana Golden Dawn titles. Like Four of Wands is perfected work.
Right.
And is it Three of Coins? It's material works.
It's
Or
or the
something.
Lord of Great Works, I think it is. For the Three of Pentacles.
I thought, I'd have to look it up. I thought it was material works. But my brain isn't there.
Yeah, I was
right
just
now,
remembering
so-
the actual, the esoteric title of Path of Tet also, which I think is the intelligence of the activity, all activities of spiritual things, or something like that.
We'll have to double check those, because that would be interesting. Okay, so the old Hebrew name for the mode of consciousness represented by the letter Tet is intelligence of the secret of works. The noun translated works is sometimes rendered as wages or reward. The secret of right work is to make sure that whatever one does will bring about the intended result. What is the essence of that secret? The knowledge that the working power is the inexhaustible energy of the one spirit. I do nothing of myself. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Does anybody? What's that from?
It's Jesus.
Thanks.
That's Jesus.
That's Jesus. I'm like, cool. Some Bible quote. I wonder where it's from.
Hal.
We all look at Hal.
That was the word of the Naz.
Nas.
Top number.
That was from a Lord Buckley routine. Where that was his beatnik hipster name for
was the
Jesus was the
Naz.
Naz.
I
Jesus
love
the
it.
Naz.
Yeah. Oh, just the Naz.
Just the Nas. That's awesome.
Oh, like Nazarene?
Yeah.
Like the Jesus of Nazareth.
Oh, okay. I just
Which is what, and that's what Todd Rundgren's first band was named.
the Naz,
Naz.
right?
Well, and it's a play off the French nez, which is nose, because he was Jewish. No,
Oh,
that was bad.
no.
That was horrible.
Oh, okay. I thought you were really going somewhere with that.
I'm sorry, I'm just being racist.
What is the French for nose?
Nez, uneasy.
Oh, because in Spanish it's nariz.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So, anyway, sorry, which gospel is that from?
We can cut that in the.
Well,
Thank you.
what was the quote again?
I do nothing of myself. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the
Oh,
works.
jeez. I don't know. It might be in several of them.
Oh.
That one I can't get specific about.
Okay. So the secret of right work is to make sure that whatever one does will bring about the intended result. What is the essence of that secret? The knowledge that the working power is the inexhaustible energy of the one Spirit. I do nothing of myself. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. This is what we were talking about with the solar energy being within at this point. So there is the secret. To be absolutely sure of success, we must correctly identify the working power as being the one Spirit. By so doing, we rid ourselves of concern as to the outcome of our work. That is 100% true in practice. By doing this is the secret. To be absolutely sure of success, we must correctly identify the working power as being the one Spirit. By so doing, we rid ourselves of concern as to the outcome of our work. I have experienced that. I know that to be 100% true. Constantly trying to be there all the time. To this unconcern about results is by no means indifference. Neither is it a vague, dreamy feeling that all will be well. One must be specific, knowing what is intended and fully resolved to bring about definite results. The thing to avoid is anxiety about the outcome. Jesus taught this plainly. The Bhagavad Gita says the secret of right work is to, and of course, the only one of the 8 I could ever remember was right work. And so for like 20 years, I was like, right work, right work, right work, right work. It was like my mantra. Like, I forget what all the others are. So the secret of right work is to have no attachment to results, misunderstood by many, especially those who have twisted it into an excuse for mental haziness. This idea is perfectly sound. Moreover, it is easy to practice. I could go on, but I think that's a lot right there.
There was a guy that came years ago and spoke to our lodge that had a very psychological connection with the tarot and more experiential. But he, on the tarot tableau, had it that the first row, the magician, strength, and devil, that the general experience with that would be on this level at the path would be depression, anxiety, feeling like you're living a lie. That's like a lot of kind of that ego stuff when you really start working with this. But I'm thinking that even what we talked about with the devil card a few months ago in what we're doing with the whole path, I do get a sense of that with some of the stuff you were just saying too. Like that expectation of results or attachment, I guess is the word that was used. Because that's where a lot of anxiety or depression can stem from sometimes, is when you have attachment or expectation of a certain result or path.
Yeah.
And Buddhism underscores that also. It's like, when they say the Buddha says that, the source talks about, we're, life is suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because, our attachments is the thing that causes the suffering.
Yeah.
And that's the way, and also, another idea that's similar to that is something I was seeing in a biography, it was a biopic about Alan Moore.
Oh, cool.
Where he was, just there's several scenes where he's actually laying out cards of the Thoth deck because he's a big, Thelemite. Yeah. But he does talk about, some of his experiences as a younger person and, wanting to achieve something. And one of the most important things he said that he adopted in terms of gaining success in his endeavors was to abandon the lust for result.
Wow.
Was if you get rid of that, then your intentions become much more pure. You're not, and he did say it was the lust for result, which happens to be the title of the card here in Crowley's deck.
Oh, wow.
Could that be something that if we tried to take this with us until we meet again, something we could all just even be observant of?
Absolutely.
When you find yourself,
for
and then
sure.
Next month.
Yeah.
If anyone has a little anecdote or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good one, for sure.
As an exercise.
And I could put that to practice because, there's a lot of things that have to be achieved, like deadlines that have to be met, and to really work on those without
And like I said, I work with this all the time. It is not always easy, but I constantly work with it, and to try to really focus on that while I have deadlines that need to be met would be super helpful. So yeah, I could definitely see that.
Well, or even having like that template of what you think you want the result to be, because so often we think things have to come in some order or package, you know. At least for me, that's a big theme, you know, is that attachment and rigidity about.
I just wanted to. I probably have a little maybe a small anecdote to share about this right now, actually, in regards to planning, doing the social plannings, and integral to some of the things that I do in preparation for that was to develop a spread that reflects the kind of topics that we were talking about, or at least in terms of the what we're talking about in the Geeks social. So I'm prepping up with the path of Chet and the path of Vav playing off of one another, and I just realized at that point it's like working with the previous one where it was Gimel and Tet, being as those paths are very 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 integrated, they cross each other. One is a connecting, equalizing path. One is one of the path of mildness. They were easy to play off of each other because they're just so simpatico. Here, I'm working with paths that are so totally divergent now. They're as far apart as they can get.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing there is trying to find some way to tie them together. And I keep thinking, okay, I've learned about this on this side. Okay, now I'll go back to this side and see and then you start to, make some thin connections here and there, and you get an idea, okay, maybe this is what it's going to look like, and that this was going to be what the spread is going to be about. And then you're just you come back to it later, it's maybe not that. Maybe I need to look into this a little more. And it's, constantly struggling. The first one struggle is to get these two opposing energies to work together in some way, which is again strength. It's plus these two paths of Vav and Chet are also connected with Chesed and Gevura, so there's a connection there.
Well, and your rising sun and setting moon, like Penny's experience that she had this past week on the Chariot card for Chet.
Right.
I mean, it's the moon is exalted in Taurus and rules Cancer.
Right. There's a very strong lunar connection between both of them. So, again,
sorry,
too,
I got you off track. I didn't mean to interrupt.
But yeah, there is that constant struggle, trying to bring it together and trying to actually first define what the right work is first is half the battle. And then the other half of the battle is seeing that right work develop to its full fruition. And that it may not even resemble what you initially envisioned it to be.
Yeah.
So I think there, it's with working with that lunar connection too, is allowing the conscious mind to just kind of, just go on subroutine for a little bit. Allow the subconscious to inform you more. Bring the subconscious to the surface and start working with that consciously.
Mm-hmm.
So it's taking that lunar energy, adding some solar energy, which is perhaps not, so because it isn't solar directly. It's ruled by the sun, but it is not the sun itself.
Yeah.
You're just adding solar influence to what is essentially a subconscious process.
That's cool.
It reminds me of songwriting, where you start out with an idea. I want to write a song about XYZ, and as you write the song kind of has a mind of its own.
Yeah.
And it takes over, and it becomes this other thing that you did not intend. But if you're dumb, you're going to change that, and you're going to keep hacking away at it, trying to make it what you wanted it to be. But if you stop and you look and you go, damn, that's good, even though it's not
not what you had in mind.
It's not what I
Yeah.
had in mind.
Right.
That's catchy.
And
that's like that's like a good song.
And it seemed to happen by accident.
Yeah.
And there it is. It's like the controlling of that natural, or working with that natural force.
Right.
The natural force says, I want to manifest this way. You're thinking, okay, I want it to manifest this way.
Mm-hmm.
The natural force keeps saying, no, over here. And you go, no, over here.
Right.
And sooner or later, you have to come to a point of agreement between the two of them and say, okay, I'm going to let the song be what it is, with in mind what I had intended originally, and let me just bring both of these things to the center and let magic happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, bringing it to this too, what it was saying about like creative imagination and intention is that I think watching that intention, like even if you say you did magical work, like for money specifically, but instead of that, you didn't, but say someone gave you a bag of groceries, or somehow you got a dinner for free, or you won a thing, and say like the money itself was irrelevant, but anything that money would get, your intention maybe really would be, I want to eat, I want to be taken care of, I want to survive, I want to flourish, I want, and that, but if you were so attached to like, no, I need the money, it's like you're missing the intention or that imagination of what it is you're seeking. Mm-hmm. And if you're, and you might miss it.
Yeah.
Well,
one of the interesting things about this lunar influence that we're discovering is that part of my whole process in working my way up to this point where I like came to realize all the stuff that he's talking about here is that I came to the moon governs the tides, so it's the ebb and flow, and so and what would happen in my business, of course, is that I'd have these really awesome months, which total flow month. But then there'd be this ebb month and be like, oh my God, and it's just like, and then it's like, and I just kept reminding myself, yep, that's how it works. And then there's going to be a flow month, and it's going to ebb and it's going to flow. And so for a long time, that was my mantra. It's just ebb and flow. And it's just like, I have a bad day, I have a good day. And it doesn't matter. It's like, if it's a bad day, I'm like ebb and flow. And if it's a good day, I'm not like, woohoo, I manifested this money. It's like, no, ebb and flow. It's like ebb and flow, ebb and flow. And from I'm like Eben, which is the stone.
This is my uncle Eb, and his wife Flo.
And I'm Flo.
Here's Eb.
Wait, I'm Flo. Something else.
Well, and of course you went that way, and I went to Eben, which is the stone. Which is Ab, and Ben, the Father and the Son. Anyway,
Father, Son, Flo.
Yeah, my business is the same way, where I have periods that I'm like, I have more money than I know what to do with, and then other months where I'm like, it's crickets around here,
Right, yeah. And so it's just like, none of it matters. It doesn't matter. Ebb and flow, and it keeps going. And then you're not, and then, working in a metaphysical store, there's always people, manifest it, just manifest it. Like, manifest a great day today. I'm like, I don't want a great day today. I want a great year. It's just like, I don't care what today is. I want a great year. I want a great 5 years. I think some of it
is that approach of like, does ebb have to equal bad or negative or scary, or for me anyway, I think getting to that point of like,
it's like a retrograde.
Yeah. What else can we use? What is the strength of this time? Okay. So maybe I have time.
Yeah.
I didn't have time 2 months ago. Like, 2 months ago, I barely could show up to the tarot thing. And now I'm like, I got some time.
Right.
That's a gift too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's part of the ebb and flow mantra for me is just that because it is a cycle, there's no stuckness at either one of those.
Right.
It's never being stuck. So there is no negativity. It's just like you go to sleep at night.
Right.
What if you didn't go to sleep? I mean, what a disaster that would be. And so it's just like, it's always, it's always moving. There's always movement. It's the lemniscate. Yeah, absolutely.
And
the
are we like
shutting
the mouth? Or are we opening the
mouth? Are we shutting it? Are we opening it? Yeah. So here, thank you. That's awesome. Super cool. Where are we? What time is it? Somebody that isn't recording with their phone.
1:45.
How late do we go?
1:30.
So should
But
we?
if we don't count the meditation, then
That
I would
is
say it's
true.
probably
It was
about 2
longer.
hours.
We did.
So
Yeah.
We,
do you-
you know, we did a lot of a setup first, and
We
then
did.
launched into the actual discussion.
Should we read our meditation, our book of tokens?
After all that talk of reading it at the end, I suppose we should. Yeah.
You know what's going to happen?
We've
We're going to go, oh, yeah, blah, 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 blah.
I know
It's
it's
to
gonna-
be fair, it's very short. So
That's useful, yeah.
Yeah.
Because usually I have my phone to check the time and to kind of keep us on track, but I didn't.
yeah, it's super short.
Okay, good.
The explanation.
and there's 4 sections too.
Yeah. Oh, sweet.
Well, I
Oh,
already
sweet.
overread and was
No.
accused of overreading.
What?
So,
No, you could never
You
overread.
can't overread. It's
Yeah.
okay because there's 4 sections. So who wants to start?
John.
John will start.
Well, did he say you're the Capricorn, right? No. Oh,
No.
never mind. I guess an
You know
Aries
what?
should start. Huh?
Yeah, the 4 is the shortest, so I'll start and we'll go this way and end with Hal reading the shortest one since he hogged all the other ones. Adjustment. Okay, meditation on Tet. My secret... Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. My secret wisdom is hid in number, and in the sign of the tally is concealed the building of the whole creation. Number veileth the power of the Elohim, for number is that thick darkness whereof it is written, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And again, Tetragrammaton said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. Ye shall know that this darkness is Egypt, and by the wisdom hidden in that darkness did Moses lead Israel forth. And the darkness which is Egypt is the darkness of number, concealing the one in the cloud of the many. Of that darkness the serpent is a sign, that great serpent, the royal snake of Egypt.
This is the serpent of temptation, yet from it cometh forth redemption. For the serpent is the first appearance of the Anointed One, and that which casteth Adam out of the garden of the east. Even that shall bring him back once more to paradise. Thus in Tet is shown the secret of going forth and the return. For Tet is the serpent coiled around the Tau. This is the sign of the name of names, which none may utter. Again, it is the symbol of the tree of divine perfections, encircled by the power of the letters wherewith is formed the whole creation.
And because the tally referreth to counting, and so to all the works of number, by this letter do I show, first, that all things are brought forth through number, and second, that all works of power accomplished by the wise have number for their foundation. For the circle of the tally is the coiled fiery power which cometh from the sun, and to rule this thou must learn to count. Count aright, and thou shalt have oil for thy lamps. For the oil for lighting containeth the secret of the letter Teth. This is the oil which riseth like a serpent, the oil which thy father Jacob poured upon the stone in the house of strength.
verily, he who knoweth the secret of that stone knoweth also the secret of the serpent. And in him shall be fulfilled the saying, when Israel was a child, then I loved him, and called my son out of Egypt. And he who knoweth this shall be a measurer of mercy, and all his works shall be rooted in the strength of my law.
I can't believe all the things that came up in this that we talked about, that we just arrived at through our discussion. Stone, the symbolism of stone, I'm trying to think of specifically things that we didn't come across in the readings, but just naturally came up through the discussion.
There's
The number and the one, the association to one, but that was partly through the lemniscate. What were you saying?
Well, there's a lot of stuff, again, in Tomberg about the serpent. And I said the serpent and the dove, but also the serpent coiling itself around creation and enclosing and evolution. And it's crazy stuff. And it just like vibrates through this too. It's very cool.
Does somebody want to read the commentary? Or do we want to talk about this first? I mean, the one thing that came to mind, which I don't remember talking about earlier, is the Moses and the serpent, because his staff became the serpent, and the hermit has the staff. And so the staff is the serpent, which is the tail of the lion. So these two, that brings the hermit back into this interplay in a way that we didn't quite. And of course, the hermit is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is exalted in Virgo as well.
That's one thing that kind of came across when I was. I guess it was, I was looking at both of these cards in this context as well, and a phrase that came to mind when I was looking at the hermit was, I am bringing civilization into the wild. As I am taking my own truth, my own sense of order, to a place where that sense and order does not exist.
Right. Because he inhabits, what was it? He inhabits, what was the word for hermit? The derivation.
The desert.
To inhabit the desert, but it was to inhabit, there was another expression, to inhabit nothingness, or to inhabit something where there is nothing, or something like that. I forget exactly what we came up with last time, or 2 times ago.
But then I looked at this within that context, and it was a reversal. It was, I bring wilderness to civilization.
Wow.
Taking that raw power of untamed energy, of untamed natural energy, and civilizing it, rather than kind of, taking the civilization, or at least, the wilderness, and you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a bit of a reciprocal
It's totally,
relationship there.
Wow, that's amazing.
There is the story in the Old Testament about the Israelites wandering in the desert and coming to the place where there's flying, winged, poisonous serpents that bite everybody, and they're all dying. And Moses is told by God to take a serpent and put it up on a staff, or a T-staff.
That's what this is a reference to. It's the tet around the tav.
Right, and Christ said, "When just like the serpent in the wilderness, when I am lifted up on the cross, you will be saved by looking to me. Just by looking. All you have to do is look, and you will be saved."
Wow.
But the idea is, well, people don't want to do that. They want to save themselves rather than,
it works so much better in Hebrew than Greek. The Alpha and Omega makes no sense, but the Aleph and the Tav makes total sense. And I'm like, that was a way bad mistranslation to put it into Greek.
Well, but the Alpha and the Omega, you see, you have T. And
that's
Rho,
true.
And then Alpha and Omega.
That's true.
And it makes the word tarot.
Tarot.
And it's here too. The Alpha and the Omega.
Oh, right. Yeah. It is.
But also, just when I read that phrase, for Tet is the serpent coiled around Tau, I was also thinking about some of the imagery that's associated with the world card, which I've seen. There is one of the Orphic egg.
Yeah.
Which is the serpent coiled around
as well. Phanes with the serpent coiled around him. Keep going. Sorry.
So it's like that's the fire that incubates the egg and allows that inside the egg is creation.
Phanes. Yeah.
It's it is basically the manifest universe inside, and that it's representing that the Tet is the incubating energy, the fire that allows it to gestate.
I told you this was going to happen when we read
this.
This is the way it's supposed to work. But when the serpent incubates the egg and it breaks open, Phanes, which is the light, which is the sun, which is our southern thing, that's what comes out. So we are incubating the egg now, and when we get to the tower where it cracks open,
and then we're passed
through to the southern face, which is the sun, which is Phanes, which is also symbolically associated with the world card, even though the world card is not on that side, it's in the center, but you go through the world card to get to the southern face, and we've got Phanes, but you guys are familiar with Phanes, right? And he's got the dude in the Greek mythology and the serpent coiled around him, and he's got the four winds, which are like the four cherubs, and he's in an oval of the zodiac, so he looks just like the world card.
Right.
I mean that.
Wow. I was imagining it like dominoes, when there's like a certain piece of information drops into place and all the dominoes tip over. You got all these symbols that are right up against each other, and then boom, knocks over all the. It's like
wow, that's so cool. Oh my god!
And a day later, you're like,
what did we talk about last time?
That's the tower happening. You just happen to build your tower out of dominoes.
Yes.
And you're just like, well,
oh, it's all done.
And speaking of,
but that's okay, because in like a year you'll realize it again from a new perspective.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think this kind of stuff, I think it works on us in a way that doesn't matter. The process of the integrating all the symbols does something to us that it doesn't matter if we remember it or not. It has already done its work. It's like any form of creativity, like Hal was mentioning songwriting or anything else. It's the creative process and the letting go of the result and allowing the creative process to just happen, and it rewires something. And it doesn't matter if you remember it or not, or can explain it or not.
When I was telling you what I was experiencing yesterday after the meetup on the way back up.
It
was, studying all of this stuff and taking on so many different angles at once. Because I mentioned, just kind of reiterate so all of you can, know what I said, was basically I understood why, there's so many protective measures being put in place in magical work, because if you take on too much too soon, you basically go insane. There's just information overload. So many circuits are firing, and if you're not prepared to take on the totality of all that, then you will get burned. But, which is probably one of the reasons why you say you take care of the edges first, and then you move to the face in this case. Because if you go here, this is
too much.
That's too much. That's the destructive quality that wipes you completely out, rather than dismantling the aspects of your conscious mind, basically, which is what I thought was the alternative to going insane. Was maybe in the process of taking all of this stuff on at once, it just adjusts your thinking and adjusts your perception of things, which carries over to every aspect of your life. Your brain is starting to work in a much different way than it was before you started that.
Wow.
So I think I took the red pill, basically.
I took the red pill a long time ago.
symbol of
I think I took another red.
And you took a red
another
pill,
one.
and then I took like 10 blue pills.
And now you're like,
And
okay,
then I had,
I'll take half a red pill.
Yeah.
and then I had an erection that lasted a week.
But I didn't call my doctor. Yeah.
Fun. 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 Fun.